I was cleaning up the dinner dishes when I found Diane's phone wedged between the couch cushions. It buzzed in my hand, and the screen lit up with a text notification. The contact name stopped my heart. Ethan, with a little heart emoji next to it. My son. My boy. Dead 5 years now. My hands started shaking as I unlocked it. She never used a passcode at my house, trusted me completely. The message thread loaded, and what I read made my blood freeze solid. We'll do it slowly. He won't notice. Once he's gone, the insurance is ours. I stood there in my living room, staring at that phone like it was a rattlesnake. My fingers trembled as I scrolled up through the message thread. The conversation went back 3 months, maybe longer. My breath came shallow and quick as I read message after message, each one more chilling than the last. The old man drinks chamomile every night at 9, one message read. Never misses it. Another, his blood pressure meds would mask the symptoms, make it look like natural causes. And then, the life insurance policy is for $250,000. Once he's gone, we split it and start our new life. I sank onto the couch, my 68-year-old knees suddenly unable to hold me. The person saved as Ethan in Diane's phone referred to himself as her future husband. They discussed me like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to remove. They knew everything about my routine, when I took my pills, where I kept my spare key, that I trusted Diane with everything. My mind raced backward through the past 6 months. Diane had convinced me to take out that life insurance policy, said it was for Emma and Lucas's college fund. My grandchildren, Ethan's kids. She'd insisted on being named the trustee for them since they were only 8 and 6 years old. I thought it was responsible planning. Now I understood it was something far darker. The messages mentioned how I'd been feeling dizzy lately, nauseous on some evenings. I'd blamed it on my age, on my medications. But now, reading these texts, I remembered how those episodes always happened after Diane made my tea, after she'd been so attentive, so caring, insisting on preparing it just the way I liked it. I grabbed my old flip phone from the side table, hands still shaking, and started taking pictures of the screen. I'm not tech-savvy, never been good with smartphones and computers, but I knew I needed evidence. I photographed message after message, trying to capture everything before Diane came back for her phone. Because she would come back. She always did when she forgot something. The messages revealed more than just a murder plot. They showed a relationship I'd been blind to. This man, whoever he really was, talked about their future together, about raising Emma and Lucas as their own, about the life they'd build on my money, in my house, after I was dead and buried next to my son, Ethan, my only child. He died 5 years ago when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit him head-on. I'd held Diane while she sobbed at the funeral. I'd been there for her every day after, helping with the kids, making sure she had everything she needed. She'd been my connection to Ethan's memory, the mother of his children, the daughter I'd never had. And she'd been using my dead son's name to hide her affair and plot my murder. The cruelty of it hit me, like a physical blow. Using Ethan's name, his name, as if he meant nothing, as if his memory was just a tool for her deception. I heard a car door slam outside. My heart jumped into my throat. I quickly closed the messages and set the phone back on the couch where I'd found it, trying to arrange it naturally. My pulse hammered in my ears as footsteps approached the front door. The door opened, and Diane walked in, all smiles and warm eyes. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, spotting the phone. I thought I'd lost it. I was halfway home when I realized. She crossed the room and picked it up, then paused, looking at me closely. "Dad, are you all right? You look pale." "Dad." She called me Dad, the woman planning to kill me. "Just tired," I managed to say, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. "Long day." She stepped closer, genuine concern on her face. Or was it genuine? How could I tell anymore? "You should get to bed early tonight. I worry about you, you know. You're not getting any younger." The words that might have seemed caring yesterday now sounded like a threat. Not getting any younger. Not much time left. That's what she meant, wasn't it? She kissed my cheek, her lips cool against my skin, and I had to force myself not to flinch away. "I'll see you Wednesday for our regular dinner," she said. "Love you." Then, she was gone, and I was alone in my house, with the weight of what I'd discovered pressing down on my chest like a stone. I sat in my recliner for a long time after she left, staring at nothing. My mind spun in circles, trying to figure out what to do. Call the police? Tell someone? But who would believe me? A 68-year-old widower, claiming his daughter-in-law was trying to kill him based on text messages I'd photographed with a flip phone. I looked at the photos I'd taken. The quality was terrible, blurry, and hard to read. Would they even be admissible as evidence? And more importantly, who was the man she was texting? Who was hiding behind my son's name? I needed to know more. I needed to be smart about this. Because if Diane suspected I knew, if she realized I'd seen those messages, I had no doubt she'd accelerate whatever plan she had in motion. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and settling sound of my old house. Every noise made me wonder if she'd come back. If tonight would be the night she decided waiting was too risky. Morning light filtered through my bedroom curtains, and I'd never been so grateful to see dawn. I got up, made coffee with shaking hands, and tried to figure out my next move. I needed to tell someone, needed help. I called my brother Frank. He lives 2 hours away in Cleveland, and he's the only close family I have left besides Diane and the grandkids. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. "Frank, it's Caleb. I need to talk to you about something." "Sure, buddy. What's going on? You sound off." I tried to explain what I'd found, but even as the words left my mouth, I heard how crazy they sounded. Text messages, a murder plot, my daughter-in-law trying to poison me. It sounded like the paranoid delusions of an old man losing his grip on reality. Frank was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "Caleb, are you sure you read those messages right? I mean, why would Diane want to hurt you? She's been nothing but good to you since Ethan died." "I know what I saw, Frank." "Listen, buddy." Frank's voice took on a gentle, careful tone that made my stomach sink. "I need to tell you something. Diane called me last week." My heart dropped. "What?" "She's worried about you, Caleb. She said you've been forgetful lately." Confused. "She mentioned that sometimes you talk like Ethan's still alive, like you forget he's gone." She asked me if I'd noticed anything when we talk on the phone. I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. That's not true. She said she's worried it might be early dementia or something. She didn't want to alarm you, but she wanted family to be aware in case you needed help. "Frank, I'm not confused. I know exactly what I saw." "Maybe you misunderstood the context of the messages? Could they have been about something else? Planning a surprise for you, maybe?" I squeezed my eyes shut. She'd been laying groundwork for weeks, maybe months, making me look unreliable, making sure that when I discovered her plan and tried to tell someone, no one would believe me. "I'll come visit this weekend," Frank said. "We can talk more then, okay? Maybe you should see your doctor, get checked out. There's no shame in it, Caleb. We're all getting older." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table feeling more alone than I'd felt since my wife died 12 years ago. Even my own brother thought I was losing my mind. I needed more information. I needed to know who this man was, the one hiding behind Ethan's name in Diane's phone. I remembered her mentioning a new friend from her book club a few months back. Tyler, I thought his name was. She'd brought him up casually, said he was nice. They'd grabbed coffee a few times to discuss the books. I went to my old computer, the one Ethan had set up for me years ago, and that I barely knew how to use. I managed to get to Facebook, something Emma had shown me how to do so I could see pictures of the grandkids. I found Diane's profile, and started scrolling through her posts and the people she'd tagged. There, Tyler Brennan. 36 years old according to his profile. Divorced. Worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep. That detail made my blood run cold. Access to drugs. Knowledge of medications. Perfect for someone planning a poisoning. I looked through his photos. There he was at the coffee shop downtown. There at the park by the river. And there, in the background of several shots, was Diane. They'd been careful, never obviously together. But once I knew to look, I could see it. The same locations. The same days, based on the timestamps. I took screenshots, though I barely knew how, fumbling with the keyboard until I managed to capture the images. It wasn't much, but it was something. That evening was Wednesday, Diane's regular visit with Emma and Lucas. I heard their voices before they even came through the door, the kids laughing and chattering. My heart ached. How could I look at my grandchildren, knowing their mother was plotting to kill me? Emma and Lucas burst through the door and ran to hug me. Grandpa, Lucas, only 6 years old, wrapped his small arms around my waist. Emma, at 8, was more reserved but smiled bright. Diane followed, carrying a container. "I made cookies," she said, "and I thought I'd make you some chamomile tea. You look tired." "I'm fine," I said, maybe too quickly. She studied my face, and I wondered what she saw there. Did she suspect I knew? "I'll put the kettle on anyway," she said, heading to my kitchen like she owned it. I sat with Emma and Lucas in the living room, listening to them tell me about school, about their soccer games and art projects, normal kid things. Things that should have filled me with joy, but instead filled me with dread for their future. Diane returned with my tea in my favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Grandpa." Steam rose from it, smelling of chamomile and honey. She set it on the side table next to my chair. "Drink it while it's hot," she said. I nodded, wrapped my hands around the warm mug. When she turned to help Lucas with his homework, I carefully tilted the mug and poured the tea into the potted plant beside my chair. The African violet my wife had loved. It seemed a small sacrifice. During the visit, Diane kept making little comments. "Grandpa seems tired today, doesn't he, kids? And did you take your pills this morning, Dad? You need to stay on schedule." And worst of all, when Emma asked me about a story I'd told her last week, and I remembered it perfectly, Diane said, "Grandpa's memory isn't what it used to be, sweetie. We need to be patient with him." Emma looked at me with worry in her young eyes. "Are you sick, Grandpa?" "No, sweetheart. I'm fine." But Diane smiled gently and said, "We're just keeping an eye on him, making sure he takes care of himself." She was poisoning my grandchildren's perception of me, making them doubt my reliability, making them ready to accept it when she told them I died of natural causes. After they left, I went to check on the African violet. Over the next 2 days, I watched its leaves turn brown and curl. Within 48 hours, the plant was dead. I saved it, put it in a plastic bag, along with what little remained of the tea in the bottom of the mug I'd hidden in the back of a cabinet. Evidence. I had to gather evidence. Friday came. Diane had mentioned she had book club that night. I decided to follow her, something I never imagined I'd do. I felt like a character in a bad TV movie, but I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I waited in my car down the street from her house. At 7 in the evening, she came out, dressed nicely, carrying a book. She got in her car and drove off. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. She didn't go to the community center where the book club met. Instead, she drove to a modern apartment complex on the north side of town, the nice area, with new construction and young professionals. She parked and walked to Building C, used a key to let herself in. I parked where I could see the building. 3rd floor, Unit 212. Through a window, I saw them. Diane and a young man embracing, kissing. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I took pictures with my flip phone, though I knew they'd be grainy and unclear in the dim light. I sat there for 3 hours, watching that lit window, feeling every one of my 68 years in my aching back and stiff legs. When Diane finally left just after 10, I sat there a while longer, staring at that apartment window. Tyler Brennan lived there. I was sure of it now. The man who was going to help kill me. The man who'd stolen my daughter-in-law and was planning to steal my life. Monday morning, I went to the police station. I'd spent the weekend gathering everything I had. The photos of the text messages, screenshots from Facebook, the dead plant, the tea residue in the jar. It looked pathetic, spread out on my kitchen table, but it was all I had. The police station was small, just like our town. Officer Patterson, a woman in her mid-40s who I'd seen around town for years, greeted me at the front desk. "Mr. Whitmore, what can I do for you today? I need to report a crime." Well, a planned crime. An attempted murder. Her eyebrows rose. "All right, come with me." She led me to a small interview room and listened as I explained everything. I showed her the photos, explained about the messages, about Tyler, about the poisoned tea. As I talked, I watched her expression change from concern to uncertain to something that looked uncomfortably like pity. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Whitmore, I need to be honest with you about something." She turned her computer monitor so I could see it. There was a report filed 3 days ago, by Diane. "Your daughter-in-law came in last Thursday," Officer Patterson said gently. "She filed a wellness concern. She's worried about you. She said you've been acting paranoid, accusing her of spying on you. She mentioned you sometimes call her late at night, thinking your son is still alive." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. That's not true. She also said she's concerned you might hurt yourself or others because of confusion and paranoia. "Mr. Whitmore, have you considered that you might have misunderstood what you saw? Maybe those messages were about something else entirely? I know what I read." Officer Patterson looked at the dead plant, at my grainy flip phone photos, at my collection of screenshots. "I understand you're concerned, but I don't see clear evidence of a crime here. The messages in these photos are hard to read. They could be interpreted different ways. And this plant, well, plants die for lots of reasons. She's poisoning me. Check the tea." Sir, I can't just take personal property and run expensive tests based on a suspicion, especially when there are concerns about your mental state. I think you should talk to your doctor, maybe get evaluated. There's no shame in it. I left the police station feeling defeated and frightened. Diane had beaten me there. She'd set the stage perfectly. That afternoon, Frank showed up at my door, but he wasn't alone. With him was Dr. Susan Rothman, a geriatric psychiatrist I recognized from around town. "Caleb," Frank said, looking uncomfortable, "the police called me after your visit this morning. They're worried about you. We all are." "You brought a psychiatrist to my house?" "I'm here as a friend," Dr. Rothman said kindly. "Your brother is concerned. Your daughter-in-law is concerned. I just want to talk." I felt ambushed, but I let them in. What choice did I have? Refusing would just make me look more unstable. Dr. Rothman asked me question about my sleep, my stress level, my grief over Ethan. She asked me to explain the text messages again, and as I recounted what I'd seen, even I could hear how paranoid it sounded coming out of my mouth. "Grief can manifest in unusual ways," she said gently. "Sometimes people experience intrusive thoughts, or see patterns that aren't really there. Combined with the stress of aging and living alone, it's not uncommon to develop anxiety or even brief psychotic episodes. I'm not crazy. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you might be experiencing something that feels very real to you, but might not match reality. Have you considered medication? Just something to help with anxiety and sleep?" Frank looked heartbroken. "Buddy, we just want to help." After they left, promising to check on me regularly, I sat alone in my house, wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe I had misread the messages. Maybe I was becoming paranoid in my old age. Maybe grief and loneliness had finally broken something in my brain. But then I looked at my flip phone, at the photos I'd taken. They were blurry but readable if you knew what you were looking for. The words were there. The threat was real. That night, Diane called. Her voice was soft, concerned. "Dad, I heard about your visit to the police station. I'm so worried about you." "I'm fine, Diane. Frank told me about Dr. Rothman's visit. Maybe you should consider her suggestion about medication. Or maybe we should look at some nice assisted living communities. Somewhere with people around, activities, medical staff nearby." My chest tightened. I'm not leaving my home. I know it's scary to think about, but as the trustee for Emma and Lucas's inheritance, I have to think about protecting their interests. If you're not well enough to manage your own affairs, we might need to make some legal arrangements. For everyone's safety. The threat was clear even through her sweet tone. She could have me declared incompetent, take control of my finances without even having to kill me. But the insurance money only paid out if I died. "I'm managing just fine," I said. "Of course you are. I'm bringing the kids by tomorrow. I want to keep a close eye on you for a while. Make sure you're okay." After she hung up, I understood the trap closing around me. Every move I made to expose her, she'd countered 3 moves ahead. She was smarter than me, more tech-savvy, more believable. She had youth and charm and the sympathy of everyone who thought she was a devoted daughter-in-law caring for a declining old man. I had to be smarter. I had to find better evidence. And I had to do it before she decided I was too much trouble and moved up her timeline. I spent the next morning researching toxicology labs. I found one in Columbus, about an hour's drive away. I called and explained I needed to have a beverage tested for possible poisoning. They quoted me $300 for rush analysis. It was worth it. I drove to Columbus that afternoon with my jar of tea. The lab was sterile and professional. I signed forms, paid with the cash I'd withdrawn from my bank, and was told results would take 3 days. Those 3 days were the longest of my life. Diane visited twice, both times bringing the kids, both times offering to make me tea. I refused politely, saying my stomach had been upset. She looked at me with those concerned eyes, touched my forehead to check for fever, and I had to resist the urge to flinch away from her touch. On the 4th day, the lab called. The results were ready. I drove back to Columbus, hands sweating on the steering wheel. The lab technician, a young woman with glasses, handed me an envelope. "Mr. Whitmore, I have to ask, are you in danger? These results show concerning levels of digoxin in the sample you brought." Digoxin? It's a heart medication. In controlled doses, it treats certain cardiac conditions, but in the concentrations we found, administered over time, it would cause serious harm, potentially fatal cardiac arrest, especially in someone your age. The symptoms would mimic a natural heart attack. Very clever, actually. if someone was trying to commit murder. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Thank you. Sir, you should go to the police. This is evidence of attempted murder. I nodded, but I knew the truth. I'd already been to the police. They thought I was crazy, but now I had scientific proof. I made copies of the report at a print shop. Then I drove straight to Cleveland, to Frank's house. I needed to show him this. He'd have to believe me now. But when I pulled up to Frank's house, my heart sank. Diane's car was in the driveway. I almost turned around and left, but I'd come this far. I had proof now. Real, scientific proof. I used the key Frank had given me years ago and let myself in. They were all in the living room. Diane, Frank, and Dr. Rothman, waiting for me. Caleb, Frank said, standing, we need to talk. This is an intervention, I said flatly. Diane's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Dad, I'm scared. You've been sending me disturbing messages, saying terrible things. I haven't sent you anything. She pulled out her phone, showed them text messages from my number. Threatening, paranoid messages I'd never written. Someone broke into my car. I know what you're doing. Stay away from me. The messages were incoherent, frightening. I didn't send those. Your number, your phone, Frank said gently. Then Diane pulled out a tablet. And there's this. She played a video, security footage from inside my house. Me in my kitchen, gesturing angrily, mouth moving. But the audio had been edited. My voice, but words I'd never said. Paranoid rambling about poison and conspiracies. Another clip showed me throwing dishes, shouting. Except I remembered that day. I dropped a plate by accident, nothing more. But in this edited version, I looked violent, unstable. Worst of all, a clip showing me at the top of my stairs, appearing to shout at Emma. The audio made it sound like I was screaming at her, frightening her. But I'd just been calling down to say dinner was ready. The video had been cut and manipulated. I never knew you installed cameras, I said, my voice hollow. I was worried, Diane sobbed. I wanted to make sure you were safe when you were alone. Dr. Rothman leaned forward. Mr. Whitmore, these videos are concerning. Combined with your visit to the police, your paranoid accusations, the messages you've been sending, I think we need to consider immediate psychiatric evaluation, possibly involuntary commitment if you're a danger to yourself or others. No. I pulled out the toxicology report. Look at this. The tea she's been giving me is poisoned. This is proof. Frank took the report, studied it. But Diane was ready. He's been obsessed with poison lately, she said. He's been Googling toxins, looking up information about medications. I think he's planning to hurt himself. Or maybe hurt me to stop what he thinks I'm doing. That's not true. The internet search history on his computer confirms it, Dr. Rothman said, looking at a printout Diane had brought. Multiple searches for poisons, medications, how to fake evidence of poisoning. I stared at the search history. I had never looked up any of those things. She must have used my computer when I wasn't looking, planted false evidence. Frank looked at the toxicology report, then at me, then at Diane. I could see him struggling, wanting to believe me but unable to reconcile it with everything else. Caleb, maybe you brought tea to be tested because you're paranoid, not because it's actually poisoned, Frank said slowly. Diane could have the same tea tested right now. I bet it would come back clean. Of course it would. She wouldn't poison the next batch. She'd already won. Dr. Rothman was writing something. A psychiatric hold recommendation. I could see my freedom slipping away. I need to use the bathroom, I said, standing abruptly. Caleb, Frank started. But I was already moving. I walked down the hall, but instead of turning to the bathroom, I went straight out the front door to my car. Frank called after me, but he didn't chase me. Maybe he was relieved to let me go. I drove away from my brother's house, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. My phone rang and rang. Frank, Diane, numbers I didn't recognize. I pulled over at a gas station, removed the SIM card from my flip phone, and went dark. I drove 40 miles to a town I'd never been to before, and checked into a cheap motel, paying cash. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and desperation. I lay on the sagging mattress and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Everyone thought I was crazy. Diane had outmaneuvered me at every turn. She had technology, manipulation skills, and youth on her side. She turned my own family against me. The police, doctors, everyone believed her over me. But she'd made one mistake. She thought I was defeated. She thought I'd give up or break down. She didn't understand that when you've got nothing left to lose, you become dangerous. I stayed in that motel for 2 days, planning. Diane and Tyler thought they'd won. They thought I was discredited, isolated, maybe even on my way to a psychiatric hospital. That made them overconfident, and overconfidence leads to mistakes. I needed proof of Tyler's involvement, direct proof, not just screenshots and speculation. I needed him to incriminate himself. On the third night, I drove back to town and parked blocks away from Tyler's apartment complex. I watched Building C from a distance. At 7:15, Tyler left, dressed nice, probably heading out with Diane. I waited 15 minutes, then approached the building. My postal service days had taught me a few things, including basic lock manipulation for stuck mailboxes. The skills came back easier than I expected. The lock on Tyler's apartment door wasn't particularly sophisticated. Inside, the apartment was modern and sterile. I moved quickly, searching for anything concrete. His laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, unlocked, careless. On the screen was an open document titled simply, "The Plan." I stood there reading it, my blood turning to ice. It was all laid out. Timeline, methods, contingencies. My daily routine documented in detail. Notes about my health conditions, my medications, the dosing schedule for the digoxin, how they'd split the insurance money, their future plans together. But there was a new entry, dated today. Old man is rabbiting. Need to speed up timeline. Carbon monoxide tonight while he sleeps. Natural gas leak. Neighbor will find him tomorrow. Accidental death. Insurance pays either way. Tonight. They were going to do it tonight. I pulled out the disposable camera I'd bought at a drugstore and photographed every page of the document. The flash seemed impossibly bright in the dim apartment. Then I heard it. Keys jingling in the hallway. They were coming back. I moved fast for an old man, diving into the bedroom and squeezing into the closet among Tyler's clothes. The door opened, just as I pulled the closet door, almost closed. Diane's voice. He's not answering his phone. Where is he? Doesn't matter. Tyler's voice, younger, confident. We do the house tonight anyway. If he's not there, we'll say he's missing. Then stage something else later. I want this over, Diane said, and I heard the stress in her voice. The old fool almost ruined everything. Relax, baby. By tomorrow night, you'll be a wealthy widow twice over. They laughed. That sound, casual and cruel, made something harden in my chest. They talked about their future. Diane mentioned she'd already drafted guardianship papers for me, just in case I surfaced again. Tyler said they should go to Vegas after everything settled, get married quietly. What about Emma and Lucas? Diane asked. They're young. They'll adjust. Hell, they'll probably like me better than the old man anyway. More laughter. They discussed moving to Florida, starting fresh, maybe having a baby of their own. I stood in that closet, breathing through my mouth so they wouldn't hear me, listening to them plan their life on top of my grave. Finally, they left together. I waited 5 full minutes before emerging, my legs cramped and aching. I had maybe 2 hours before they tried to kill me. I went to a payphone outside a convenience store and called the fire department, disguised my voice, older and shakier than it really was. There might be a gas leak at 23 Oak Street. Smells real bad. Better check it out. Then I called the police tip line. Different voice this time, younger. I saw some guys messing around a house on Oak Street. Looked like they were breaking in. Better send someone. I drove to the hill overlooking my neighborhood and parked where I had a view of my street. Through the binoculars I'd bought at the sporting goods store, I watched my house. Around midnight, a figure approached. Tyler, dressed in dark clothes, face covered. He moved quickly to my basement window, the one with the loose latch I'd been meaning to fix. He disappeared inside. 10 minutes later, he emerged and jogged away into the darkness. I waited, heart pounding. 45 minutes later, fire trucks arrived, lights flashing. Then police cars. They evacuated my neighbors. Firefighters in protective gear entered my house with gas detectors. Even from this distance, I could see the urgency in their movements. They'd found it. The tampered gas line. Police secured the scene. Yellow tape went up. My house became a crime scene. But when I drove to the police station an hour later, exhausted and desperate, Officer Patterson looked at me with that same pitying expression. Mr. Whitmore, we're glad you're safe. There was a gas leak at your house. The line had corroded and failed. Very dangerous. You're lucky you weren't home. It wasn't corrosion. Someone tampered with it. She shook her head gently. The fire inspector says it's consistent with an old line giving way. These things happen in older homes. Someone tried to kill me tonight. Sir, your family has been very worried. Where have you been for 3 days? I saw it then. Without me dead in that house, there was no attempted murder. Just an unfortunate accident, with old infrastructure. Tyler had been good, made it look natural. Patterson suggested I go to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. She made it sound optional, but I heard the threat underneath. Go voluntarily, or they'd have me committed. I was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of no one believing me, tired of being 3 steps behind Diane and Tyler's manipulations. But then I thought about Emma and Lucas, about my son Ethan, about letting evil people win. Fine, I said. I'll go to the hospital. Patterson looked relieved. I'll call your brother to meet you there. But as I walked to my car, I was already planning my next move. Because sometimes you have to lose a battle to win the war. The hospital admitted me for observation, both psychiatric and physical. They put me in a semi-private room. My roommate was an elderly stroke patient who slept constantly, machines beeping steadily next to his bed. Frank came to visit the next afternoon. He looked tired, older somehow. Where have you been, Caleb? We've been worried sick. Around, I said. Diane told me about the gas leak. She's so grateful you weren't home. Says it's a miracle. Miracle. Right. Frank sat in the chair beside my bed. The doctors want to run some tests. Make sure you're okay physically and mentally. I think it's a good idea. I didn't argue. What was the point? I love you, buddy, Frank said, his voice breaking a little. But you need help. Real help. After he left, I lay in that hospital bed, mind working. I'd been reacting to Diane and Tyler's moves this whole time, defensive, trying to prove what they were doing. But proof didn't matter, when no one believed me. I needed to change tactics. I needed them to confess with witnesses present, to do something so blatant that even their explanations couldn't cover it. That evening, Diane visited. Visiting hours were almost over, and she was alone. She sat beside my bed, took my hand, the perfect image of a concerned daughter-in-law. Dad, I'm so glad you're safe. When I heard about the gas leak, I was terrified. I watched her face through barely slitted eyes, pretending to doze. She glanced at the door, then at my sleeping roommate. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a syringe. My heart hammered, but I kept my breathing steady, my eyes almost closed. She approached my IV line, syringe in hand, checking one more time that no one was watching. Stop, I said, eyes opening fully. She froze, then recovered with a smile. Dad, you're awake. I was just checking your IV. The nurse asked me to make sure it wasn't kinked. Liar. I reached for the call button, but Diane was faster. She palmed the syringe and dropped something else, a second syringe I hadn't seen, to the floor. It clattered on the linoleum, empty and harmless. Then she pressed the call button herself. Help! He's confused, trying to hurt himself. The nurse rushed in to find Diane crying, pointing at me, and an empty syringe on the floor near my bed. He grabbed at his IV. Diane sobbed. Said I was trying to kill him. I don't know where he got that syringe. The nurse looked at me, at the syringe on the floor, at Diane's tears. Mr. Whitmore, where did you get this? I didn't. She's lying. She was going to inject something into my IV. But the syringe on the floor was empty, harmless. The real one had vanished into her purse. The nurse called for the doctor. They sedated me despite my protests. As the drugs pulled me under, I saw Diane's face. A small, triumphant smile. When I woke, it was morning. Dr. Rothman sat beside my bed with a hospital psychiatrist, Dr. Patel. Mr. Whitmore, we need to discuss your situation, Dr. Patel said gently. They explained that Diane had petitioned for emergency guardianship. Given my behavior over the past week, paranoid delusions, disappearing for days, the incident with the syringe, they were recommending transfer to a psychiatric facility. I tried to explain, but the sedatives had left me groggy. My words came out slurred, confused. I sounded exactly like what they thought I was, a mentally ill old man. The transfer will happen tomorrow morning, Dr. Rothman said, not unkindly. It's for your own safety, Caleb. After they left, I lay alone in the dark hospital room. My roommate's machines beeped steadily. Outside my door, the hospital hummed with quiet nighttime activity. I'd failed. Failed Ethan. Failed Emma and Lucas. Failed myself. By tomorrow, I'd be locked in a psychiatric ward. Eventually, Diane would find a way to finish what she started. Maybe another accident. Maybe she'd just wait until I really did go senile and died naturally, collecting the insurance money years from now. My grandchildren would grow up thinking I'd been crazy, that their mother had tried so hard to help me. They'd never know the truth. I thought about giving up, just letting it happen. I was 68 years old, tired, alone. Maybe this was how it ended. But then I remembered something. Ethan, 12 years old, learning to ride a bike in our driveway. He'd fallen over and over, skinned his knees, wanted to quit. I'd told him, "You only lose if you stop trying. Fall 7 times, get up 8. My jaw set. I wasn't done yet. The night nurse was young, more interested in her phone than her patients. I waited until she was absorbed in scrolling, then quietly disconnected my monitors. Removed my IV myself, wincing at the pain and the spot of blood. I found my clothes in the small closet. Got dressed slowly, quietly. My roommate snored on, oblivious. I slipped out of the room, took the stairs instead of the elevator. Ground floor. I found a side exit staff used for smoke breaks. The cold November air hit me like a slap. I was free, but I was also a fugitive, an escaped psychiatric patient. If they caught me now, I'd be committed for sure. I walked 2 blocks to a 24-hour convenience store. Used my last bit of cash to buy a prepaid cell phone. I had one last play. It was risky, maybe illegal, but I had nothing left to lose. I stood outside that convenience store, cold air burning my lungs, and made a decision. If everyone thought I was dead or crazy anyway, I might as well use it. I dialed Tyler's number on the prepaid phone. When he answered, I disguised my voice, making it official and impersonal. "Is this Tyler Brennan? This is County General Hospital Administration. I'm calling about patient Caleb Whitmore." "Yes?" Tyler's voice was instantly alert. "I'm sorry to inform you there's been an incident. Mr. Whitmore passed away approximately 1 hour ago. Cardiac arrest. We found your number listed as emergency contact through his daughter-in-law." A pause. Then, "Oh my God. Are you sure? I'm very sorry for your loss. We're completing paperwork now. The body will be released to the family tomorrow for funeral arrangements." I hung up before he could ask more questions. Now Diane and Tyler thought I was dead. They'd go to my house tonight to celebrate, maybe destroy any remaining evidence. And I'd be waiting, but I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. I called the only person who might believe me. "Marcus, it's Caleb." Marcus Delaney, my old postal service partner, answered with a gruff, "Do you know what time it is?" 3 in the morning. "Marcus, I need your help. I can't explain everything, but I need recording equipment, and I need you to trust me." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" We met at an all-night diner. Marcus was 70, built like a barrel, with skeptical eyes that had seen too much. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back and studied me. "That's the craziest thing I've heard in 40 years. I know, but you never lied to me before." He pulled a duffel bag from under the table. "I brought my trail cameras, used them for hunting. They got audio. Also got a digital voice recorder my granddaughter gave me." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. If you're wrong, we're both going to look like fools. If you're right, well, we're dealing with murderers." At 4 in the morning, I let myself into my own house. The gas had been shut off, but everything else was untouched. Yellow tape still crossed the basement door. I set up Marcus's trail cameras in the living room and kitchen, hiding them in plants, on bookshelves, behind picture frames. The voice recorder went under the couch. Then I hid in my bedroom closet, just like I'd hidden in Tyler's. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hours passed. My legs cramped. My back ached. But I waited. Around 10 in the morning, I heard my front door open. Voices. Diane and Tyler. "Are you sure he's really dead?" Diane asked. "Hospital called me directly. Cardiac arrest." The old bastard finally kicked it. They laughed, the sound echoing through my house. From my hiding spot, I pulled out the prepaid phone. Texted Marcus, "Call 911 now. Tell them possible break-in and threats at my address. Stay on the line." In the living room, I heard a cork pop. Champagne. They were drinking my liquor, celebrating my death in my house. "I almost felt bad," Diane said. "But then I remembered. $250,000. Plus this house, his savings, everything," Tyler added. "Once you're guardian of those kids, it all flows to us. Emma and Lucas. God, they're annoying. But they'll be useful for once." My heart broke hearing my grandchildren called annoying. Useful only for the inheritance. Tyler asked about the funeral arrangements. Diane laughed. "I'll cry appropriately. Say he was a wonderful man who struggled at the end. The kids will believe it. They're young. Eventually they'll forget him." What about the brother? Frank? He'll be sad, but relieved. He was already convinced Caleb was losing it. They discussed selling my house, moving to Florida. Tyler mentioned they'd gotten away with it, that he'd been worried when I escaped the hospital, but it didn't matter now. The digoxin was genius, he said. Slow enough nobody suspected. The IV would have worked too if he hadn't woken up, but cardiac arrest in the hospital is even better. No questions. They kissed. I heard it from my hiding place and felt sick. I'd heard enough. The cameras were recording everything. But I needed them to say more, to incriminate themselves completely. I stepped out of the closet. I'm not dead. Diane and Tyler whirled around, champagne glasses falling. Diane's face went white. Tyler looked like he'd seen a ghost. You, Diane whispered. How? I heard every word, I said, standing as straight as my aching back would let me. You're both finished. Diane recovered first, her shock transforming to cold calculation. Nobody will believe you. You're a crazy old man who escaped from a psychiatric hospital. Maybe. But they'll believe the recordings. Tyler lunged forward, searching frantically. He found the trail camera in the plant, smashed it. Found the second one on the bookshelf, destroyed it too. Diane found the voice recorder under the couch and stomped on it. You think you're smart? Diane's voice was pure venom now, all pretense gone. We'll just finish what we started. Right now. Tyler grabbed a fireplace poker. They advanced on me, and for a moment I felt real fear. I was an old man. They were younger, stronger. But I backed toward the door, and I was smiling. You already confessed. Not just to the cameras you found. I pulled out the prepaid phone. On the screen, an active call. Duration, 27 minutes. On the other end, 911 dispatch, with Marcus still on the line. Everything Diane and Tyler had said for the past half hour was recorded on an official police line. Diane's face went slack. Tyler dropped the poker. No, Diane whispered. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Tyler made a desperate move toward me, but the front door burst open. Officer Patterson and 3 other officers poured in. Caleb, are you all right? Patterson asked, and this time her eyes held belief, not pity. I'm alive, I said simply. They restrained Diane and Tyler. Read them their rights. Diane didn't cry or plead. She just stared at me with pure hatred. You should have died when you were supposed to, she hissed as they led her away. Marcus came in behind the police, still holding his phone. He walked over and clapped me on the shoulder. You clever son of a gun. The next hours blurred together. Statements at the police station. Marcus confirming everything. The smashed cameras were recovered, their memory cards intact with partial footage. Combined with the 911 recording and Tyler's laptop, which police seized with a warrant, the case was overwhelming. Diane and Tyler were formally charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and elder abuse. Frank arrived at the police station, grabbed me in a crushing hug. I'm sorry. God. Caleb. I should have believed you. You believed what made sense, I said, because I was too tired to be angry. The story hit the local news, then went national. Daughter-in-law used dead husband's name to plot murder. Reporters camped outside my house. I didn't talk to any of them. Dr. Rothman visited me personally to apologize. She manipulated me. Manipulated all of us. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. Most importantly, I won emergency custody of Emma and Lucas. They'd been placed in temporary foster care during the investigation. When I picked them up from the foster home, Emma ran to me and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I knew Mommy was lying about you being sick, she whispered. I knew it wasn't true. Lucas, only 6, didn't fully understand what had happened. But he held my hand and said, I missed you, Grandpa. The trial came months later. I sat in the courtroom and listened to prosecutors lay out the evidence. The poison tea, the edited videos, the messages, Tyler's plan document, the 911 recording of their confession. Diane showed no remorse. When asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she just stared at me with cold eyes. The judge gave her 25 years. Tyler got 20. Outside the courthouse afterward, news cameras everywhere. I stood with Marcus, Frank, Emma, and Lucas. A reporter shouted, Mr. Whitmore, what do you want to say? I thought about it. Then said simply, evil can wear a familiar face. Trust your instincts, and never stop fighting for truth. That evening, back in my house, cleaned and repaired and feeling like home again, I made hot chocolate for Emma and Lucas. Not chamomile tea. Never again. We sat in the living room, The kids playing a board game Frank had brought. Normal kid sounds. Laughter. Arguments over whose turn it was. Beautiful. Ordinary chaos. I looked at Ethan's photo on the mantel. My son, frozen at 32, smiling in the sunshine. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you," I said silently. "But I protected them. I promise I'll keep them safe." Emma looked up from the game. "Grandpa, are you okay?" "Yeah, sweetheart. I'm okay." And for the first time in months, it was true. That night, Emma and Lucas asleep in their bedrooms down the hall, I sat in my chair with a cup of coffee and thought about everything that had happened. I'd learned that betrayal comes from unexpected places. That evil doesn't always announce itself with a villain's sneer. Sometimes it smiles sweetly and makes you chamomile tea and calls you dad. I'd learned that being old doesn't mean being helpless. That even at 68, you can fight back. You can win. I'd learned that when everyone thinks you're crazy, sometimes the sanest thing to do is prove them wrong, no matter what it takes. Most of all, I'd learned what Ethan tried to teach me all those years ago. When he was learning to ride that bike, you only lose if you stop trying. Fall 7 times, get up 8. I'd fallen more than 7 times over these past months. Been knocked down, discredited, drugged, nearly killed. But I'd gotten up every time. And in the end, I'd won. Not just for me. For Emma and Lucas. For Ethan's memory. For the truth. I looked around my living room. Same old furniture. Same family photos on the walls. But everything felt different now. Harder won. More precious. I thought about my wife. Gone 12 years now. About Ethan. Gone 5. About all the people I'd lost. And all the people I still had to protect. "I'm still here," I said to the empty room. Still fighting. Still standing. And I would keep standing. For as long as Emma and Lucas needed me. Because that's what you do when you're a grandfather. When you're a father. When you're a survivor. You get up. You fight. You protect the ones you love. No matter what. Before I finish, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone close to you betray your trust in a way you never saw coming? How did you find the strength to fight back when everyone doubted you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through their own battle. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that it's never too late to stand up for truth, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges and finding the courage to overcome, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that age is just a number when it comes to fighting for what's right. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop believing in your own truth. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people you love.